Hi, in this video of Spring Boot video series, I'll show you how to write CRUD operations, means create, read, update and delete operations using Spring Boot and MongoDB combination. So by the end of this video, you will come to know how to do the basic interactions using repositories with MongoDB and how to write controllers for exposing RESTful web services. Let's get started. So first, I'll create a Gradle project. So I'll name it as Spring Boot MongoDB CRUD, or I just say Spring Boot MongoDB. And first thing you need to do is add the Spring Boot and Spring Data MongoDB dependencies. So for that, go to Spring Boot's official website and also Spring Data MongoDB's homepage and get the dependencies. So pick the latest, so switch the toggle to Gradle, then you will see what is the exact line you need to copy to the build.gradle file of your Gradle project. So this is the Spring dependency, and the same way here is the latest Spring Data MongoDB dependency. So now do Gradle project refresh so that it will download all these dependency jars for you. So this is done, and now let's start and create our project. So the skeleton Gradle project gives you these things. You can just delete these sample files and sample test files. So I'll just delete them. So first thing I'll do is create a package. So I'll name it as com.example and then create my start class. So where I actually start the Spring Boot application. So let me add a main and also annotate this class with Spring Boot application and write Spring application dot run as the start class. So with this you can start the Spring Boot application. Now let's create a resource folder. So I'll create a new source folder and I'll name it as src main resources, and I'll create an application.property file. So here mention your MongoDB details. So I have MongoDB installed in my local, so it's running on localhost and 27017 port without any username and passwords. So for this, do all these things to say what is the host, what is the port, and what is the DB the MongoDB need to connect to. So these are the configuration. You do spring.data.mongodb.host, say localhost in my case, and then port, which is 27017. This is the default port of Mongo, and then database name. Once again, all these configurations are optional. So if you don't specify host, it of course picks the local host, and if you don't specify port, it takes the default port 27017, and if you don't specify any database, it takes test as the default database. So now let's start with the actual thing. So for this example, I'll pick the user object and I'll write CRUD operations surrounding to the user object. So I'll create a package to store the user object, and I create a class. I name it as user, and I'll keep my fields here. So first thing you need to do is create an ID field and annotate it with the ID, and then I'll create some more fields. Maybe I'll create a name, I'll create an integer, maybe age, maybe an email. So I'll create setters and getters for it. Let me format this class. Okay, so now your model is ready. Now let's create a repository to interact with the MongoDB for the user collection. So I'll create another package, a repository package, and I'll create the user repository. So new class, I'll name it as user repository. Now few things here. First of all, this should not be a class, rather it should be an interface. Sorry for that, let me create an interface. And this should extend MongoDB repository, which gives you the default things for you like save, read, a lot many, and you should specify the collection and the serializable type for the ID. So in our case it's a string, because ID is string in our case. So this bare minimum repository should be sufficient for doing your CRUD operations. So you can do insert, delete, update, read, everything. But let's say if you want some advanced things, like if you want to read something by name or so, that you can't do. Let's say if that is the case, let's say you want to read by name, all you need to do is just add this method. I'll say find one by name, and let's say I'll pass name. You can use this if you want to filter something by name. So this should be sufficient. You don't have to give the implementation for it, and you can just use this by passing the name. So same way you can do by email. So be strict. So follow the camel case and the same property names here, so that it works without any issues. Okay, so we are done with the repository part, and now let's create a controller, a RESTful to expose the RESTful web services surrounding to the user object. So I'll create another package for controller, and I'll put my user controller there. So I'll create a new class, name it as user controller. So now you need to annotate this with the REST controller to expose this as RESTful web services, and also have a request mapping. So if you don't do anything, it will be supplied at the root. Let's say as we are dealing with the user object and user CRUD operations, I'll map it to the user endpoint. So you need to call the methods available in this controller with localhost 8080/user. So now let's start writing our actual CRUD operations. So what I do is, first I'll create the methods without annotating anything, then we'll start annotating so that we can expose them as RESTful web services. So first I'll do these things. I'll do create, read, update, delete, just as methods. So what is for create? So it's simply public void create, which takes user object. Simple, right? Let me import the user and then read. This is simply public, which returns the user. So read is the method name, which takes ID, let's say. So it takes the ID and returns the user object. For now, I'll keep null so that I don't get any compilation errors. And then update. It's again public void update a user object. And then delete public void delete, and let's say it takes the ID of the user which need to be deleted. Okay, now let's write the repository code. For that, first auto wire this repository in this controller. To do that, annotate this with auto wire. This Spring will inject the user repository for you to this user controller. Now let's say for create, you just need to call save of user, and to read you need to do find one by ID. To update, the save should be sufficient. It's the upsert. If this user object has the same ID, then it'll do the update, otherwise it will insert. So the same save should work for us for the updates. Now delete with the ID. So now the implementation is done. Now the last thing pending is expose these methods as REST services. So for create, it should be a post call, and for read, a simple get should be sufficient by taking ID in the path. And for the update, I'll take it as put, and for delete, I'll make the HTTP method as delete, and I take the ID from the path. So let's start annotating this class and these methods to make that happen. So first thing I need to do is annotate it with request mapping, where you can specify the method and what it consumes, etc., etc. So if it is the get method, and you don't have to mention by default the method is get, but in this case the create should be a post, so you need to mention that post as your method. So I'll say method equal to, so you have this enum request method dot post. So this is my method, and also I mentioned that it consumes a JSON type. So my media type is application JSON, and now this REST service is ready. So I'm saying this is a post call and it takes a JSON. So now while you are calling this REST call, you will send the user object as a JSON in the post body, and you want to map that to this user object. For that, you just say or annotate this thing with request body. So Spring automatically map the JSON what you are sending in the body, and it casts it to this user object, and that's it. You are done with the create RESTful web services. So now do the same for read. So as I said, you don't have to mention the request method because the read is a get type, so by default it's get, but you need to do something here. You're going to pass ID in the path, so something like localhost 8080/user/ID, and that you need to mention again. So I'll say request mapping, and I say this is my path. So I'll say /ID. So ID is my path parameter. So this will end up something like localhost 8080 slash user, because that is at this controller level, and then slash id. And again, you need to map this id to this variable. For that, you annotate this thing with the path variable. Now Spring automatically map whatever it gets in this path to this variable. So this is done, and then update. So it more or less same as the create, just the difference is the method is put here. And then again delete, it more or less same as this, it takes the path, but again the method is delete, so that you need to mention. I'll do it. So now your controller is ready. So now, so this is what you added. You created a start class where you're actually starting Spring Boot application, and a user repository for the operations and the controller. So now let's start and start testing it. So I'm starting the Spring application. Now this should scan the controller, repositories, everything, and it should map this user endpoint that you should be seeing in the logs. Yeah, you can see that. So it mapped all these things. So there is a put method, there is a slash id, get, and there is a delete, and there is a post. So you got this 4 things mapped. So now let's test it. So let's take any REST testing tool. So I have Postman with me. You can pick any of your favorite REST testing tools. So let's come here and let's test one by one. So before doing that, let me open RoboMongo and see what my MongoDB has. So you can see that it does not have any database with name example, which is the name what we are using in this example. So when you create your first record, it should automatically create this example database and put the data in it. Let's see. So now here is my controller, and this is my create. So the type is post, you can see, and in the body choose raw and choose a JSON type and send the user object here. So what all you have? You have ID. Let's say this ID is your employee ID. So I say E01, and then you have name. Let's say name1, and you have an integer age, so 22, and then I think you have email. Let's say name1 at gmail.com. Now let's post it. So this is a void method, so it won't return anything than a 200 success code. So I'll send. Oops, I missed the UI. So it's a default one. So I did not override any port, anything. So it should be localhost 8080 slash user. That is what I mapped. So I'll call this thing. So you can see the headers. So you can see that 200 OK is the status code, means this call was successful. So let's go back to the RoboMongo. So I'll refresh this. You can see that it created the database for me and the user collection. So let's go there and choose the JSON view. So you can see that whatever I posted, it just created with the name, age, email, and ID. So create worked. Let's go with the read. So now for this, the method is get. It's the same endpoint, and it expects ID in the path. So in our case, what we created is E01. So I'll put that in the path, and that's it. If you send, it return. So if you say something else, maybe 67, to return empty. So read is working. Let's go to the third one, which is update. So come back to the Postman, put the method as put in the body. Maybe I'll update age to 23. So keep this in mind. You should use the same ID, otherwise it will create a new record for you, because the save method what we are using on repository does upset. So now it should pick the same document and update to age to 23. So I hit it, no errors. So now this should be done here. So I'm refreshing this document. Oh, this didn't happen for some reason. What I did, I made 23 as age and E01 is my record. Can I make it 24? Put, oh, I'm sorry, I'm hitting a wrong endpoint. It's just slash user. Okay, now let's go and see. Something terribly went wrong. What's happening? So 8080 slash user is the endpoint, and I said put, and I used user repository dot save of user. Everything looks okay to me. JSON is my type, and E01 is the same thing what I'm using, what I have in headers. Okay, everything looks okay. Put. Let me delete this other record which just got created. Okay, I see. I missed this thing. The annotation for request body says Spring is unable to cast that JSON to user object. My mistake. Let me restart this. Let me create that record, delete this record, the second record which it is creating, and let me read the endpoint. Now it should work. So you have the record with 22 which we just created, and my Spring application is up, and let me submit this thing. Okay, now go back to the MongoDB, refresh the record, and it worked. Cool. So that is the update and the delete. So delete is with the HTTP method delete, and it expects the user ID in the path itself, and no body, nothing. Okay, and let's hit it, and you got an error. Again, I think I missed the same thing. I didn't annotate this string ID with the path variable. Sorry, let me restart quickly. Let's wait Spring to be started. Okay, hit this. So hopefully it's done. Let's refresh this collection, and you see that record is gone. Cool, that's all. So you have all the 4 CRUD operations with you. So as I said, if you want some custom operations like maybe find one by name, let's say if you want to filter something by name or email something, then you can just add those methods in the repository, and you can use those methods just like the methods on that interface. Let's say we created find by name, and you can actually pass a name 01 something like this, and this will return you the user object for you. That's all. Thank you.